Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to an episode of the Doom Scroll podcast. I'm Cody. I'm here with my co-host Calvin, and we're gonna get into all the latest shit that you know might have already been doom scrolling. But we're gonna weigh in, give our opinions, talk a little bit. You know, Probably just ramble a ton. But anywho, Calvin, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I feel like there's been, news is just nonstop, so that's fun to deal with. Um, Other than that, I think life's going on. Um, Gas prices are even higher than ever. So that's always fun to deal with. Um, but yeah, just working. Yesterday I kind of had we're experiencing a little late rain, um, so couldn't really do anything this weekend. So yesterday I kind of sat down for like once in how many months and just played some video games and chilled, and so that was nice. And today I get to do taxes, so
Nah.
it's been looking forward to that. So
Ugh, that's a yeah. I've filed my taxes, but I have yet to like send the payment, and it's really hard sending off your tax payment when you do not agree remotely with what the federal government is doing with your tax
yeah.
dollars, especially with the Iran war, which we're going to touch on. But I know there's kind of been a movement of not paying taxes because we don't support where our tax dollars are going. But I am a little guy and I am terrified of the government. Being a trans person, you just generally are a little more heightened and don't want to end up on a list and you don't want to draw more attention to yourself. So I'm kind of just like, I feel like I just got to pay it and I don't want to deal with any trouble because I'm already stressed enough as it is. But how do you feel about the whole tax strike that
You
people are
know,
kind of pulling?
I would not do well in jail. I'm gonna start off with that. I am not strong enough mentally, psychologically, and physically to handle what happens there. Um, I've watched Orange is the New Black. I've seen a couple of I did watch a couple seasons of Prison Break, and that's where my knowledge of prison comes from, and it's not good. So I would be someone's bitch pretty quickly. And I don't want to, break the my vows. So, in that sense, I'm gonna try and avoid a prison as much as possible. I think we are gonna look into, can we file exempt from federal and just pay state taxes? Um, if I'm not a tax expert, so I see a lot of people being like, you can totally do this and it's fine, whatever. I'm sure there's probably a lot of loopholes that you have to go through though to do that, so I'm not sure. But I agree, like I've never had an issue paying taxes. I understand that my money, it sucks. I think everyone would like to have more money in their pocket, especially, recently with how expensive things are. Um, but I'm okay with my money going towards, roads being taken care of, there being programs for people who, whether it's parents or kids or whatever. I agree with investing into the education system, so younger people are having better education and having a better place to get educated. I'm all down for that. I think that's kind of what you should do in your community, is you should invest in your community and to make everyone um safer and healthier. I'm not okay with my tax dollars going towards a genocidal war. um that I'm not okay with. But again, I don't know how to it's hard when, like, I know people want to strike and just not pay taxes, and I think that's great, but I'm also terrified of the consequences, and us being minorities, we are going to be a target if there is any pushback. It's not going to be, the normal, everyday people, they're probably going to they can probably get away with it, but it's going to be people like minorities that are probably going to face the consequences more. So it's a little more scary.
Yeah, for sure. It's just not wanting another target on your back, basically. I feel like I have my moments where I'm already paranoid about social media stuff or whatever. Because, being out as trans, I've been out for a very long time. I can't just go erase all of that. So I don't want to continue to bring attention to it unnecessarily. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't survive in jail either. My experience with that or my knowledge of that is from watching many seasons of 60 Days In. And let's
Yep.
just say, nope. Like, I wouldn't even sign up for that show. Like, fuck
Yeah.
that. Like, I have not been someone's girlfriend since 2007. I don't plan to ever be again. So I'm going to just stay out of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's not a great experience to think about. Um but it's hard because it's kind of like the situation that we're dealing with just anyways in this political realm. It's like I want to do something to change it, but one, is anything that I do going to make a difference? And then also, like, can I handle the consequences? And it's really hard too because, like, there's a lot of protests going on, and I fully support people's right to protest, and uh but I haven't really gone out and protested one because I'm just scared, like, as someone who's a minority, like, and probably I should be out there, but it's really easy to, like, already have a target on your back to make that target even bigger. And so it's scary to, like, put yourself in a situation where, you know, you could get unjustly, put in jail or hurt or something like that. Um, I don't know. I'm a bit of a wuss, so
I mean, I get it. And at the end of the day, I feel like I mean, this sounds bad, but if we saw that like protests actually made significant difference, I feel like it would make more sense, but I just haven't seen it matter. It's empowering. It shows that there's a lot of people
uh-huh.
who don't disagree with what is going on, but what exactly does it disrupt? I saw someone argue that a lot of these protests are held on weekends. We're not disrupting anything because people are still going to work. We're still
Uh-huh.
just doing the things. They're like, have these protests on a Monday. Don't go to work. That's your protest. Like,
Uh-huh.
don't keep working for the man and making them richer and then doing this on your off time. Granted, plenty of people work on weekends still, and maybe they
Uh-huh.
didn't go to work, but majority of people, you know, have the 9 to 5s and it's not really making that much of impact. So a way for us to make them actually feel the impact is to stop making them money by not
Yeah.
showing up to work. But it's also scary and you don't know the consequences of that.
Uh-huh.
You could get fired and then you're fucked.
Yeah.
Um, so there's just a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot where you just kind of feel powerless. And at some point, I think something will have to occur, something will be done, but something that makes sense to everybody enough that we can unite. Uh, Enough of us can unite to actually make a difference to where consequences aren't going to fall on small number of people or minorities or etc. I don't know what that is. I have no solution, no plan. I'm just stating what I've seen.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think majority of us, especially people protesting too, it's like we can't afford to lose our jobs, in this economy. Like, I don't know what I would do if I lost my job. Like, I know plenty of people who are trying to find work and are super qualified for positions and can't even get jobs at, like, Target. So it's scary to, like, put your whole life and livelihood, and not just yours. Like, it's one thing, I think, too, if you're a single person and you can make a decision that just impacts your life. But when you're married or when you have kids, you have people that depend on you. You kind of have to be, you have to be a little bit more safer in your actions because that affects, your family. Um, and especially like, this isn't, you know, 10 years ago, I mean, we had protests that were pretty violent, at least, with police interaction. Um, but there were like some guardrails of action, so like, yeah, they would like pepper spray protesters and, they get arrested and maybe there was some rubber bullets and, whether or not that was justified or not. But now we're seeing an administration that just takes, takes action into their hands and doesn't care about like what the actual laws are, so it's definitely scary. Like you could go out there and protest and you got the wrong guy working for ICE, that just decides he's going to shoot you, you know,
Yeah.
he's scared, because you're coming towards him or, whatever, but it's definitely scarier right now too, to do any of that.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, yeah, it's. I hope. I think there will come a time where the current situation feels worse than the consequence, or that you feel like you're going to meet the consequences regardless, and then people are just like, "All right, fuck it. We either do this or we keep going down." I feel like we're getting close to that point because people are waking up and realizing that it is not left versus right. It's rich versus poor, and we have these rich people that just continue uh, to not just to hoard money and not really allow other people quality of life. And I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking to feel like I can be financially secure. Cost of living is not crazy. And, you're not having to count your pennies to afford stupid stuff like toilet paper or paper towels or, food for fuck's sake. So we're getting to that point because with the gas prices rising, that's going to make the food costs go up.
Uh-huh.
So pretty much, people aren't going to be able to afford life anyways. So that might be the time where people like, fuck it, my job isn't making me enough to live anyways. This is my opportunity. So maybe we're going to get there or we're there, but it's hard to get everyone to kind of see that the bigger picture or the longer term solutions that we don't have yet because it's just like no matter who is in office, Democrat or Republican, this has continued on. The cost of
Uh-huh.
living has continued to rise. Being middle class isn't being middle class anymore. It's just, yeah, it's not left versus right. And so it's kind of like, even if we get Trump out of office, how are things going to improve?
Yeah.
As trans people, we can relax a little bit because we won't feel like our rights are actively, being chipped
Uh-huh.
away. But it doesn't necessarily help our financial status
Yeah.
or, feeling secure, with having a roof over our head or
Well,
being able to afford food.
well, and that's also like that's a lot of the reasoning that people who aren't MAGA or say they aren't MAGA, that's was a lot of their excuse for voting for Trump was because they wanted prices to go down, and now things have like doubled and tripled. Um, so it's really hard in a situation too because that's where I can understand someone voting for Trump for those reasons. I can understand someone who probably like isn't really deep diving into like economics and what he was saying was don't like he's just promising this is going to happen and you're just like taking that word for word. um I can understand someone being like I've actually talked to people where you know they were like, well, yeah, there's rights issues going on, but right now I can't afford to feed my kids. Right now I can't afford to do this. I can't afford to have medical care for my kids. So what am I going to choose? Am I going to choose the candidate who's saying, rights, they're fighting for rights for all of us, or the candidate that's saying like, hey, you suffering right now, I'm going to stop this. I can understand that, that thinking. Um, so yeah, I don't know if, even if Trump were to leave office or if he were to, um, for whatever reason, whether that was impeachment or he just doesn't run again and, wherever,
He
whether or not it's
dies.
a, oh boy. Uh, now we're on a list again. Thanks, Cody.
Yeah,
Uh,
sorry.
no,
By
yeah,
natural causes. Natural.
so we don't know who's going to take that place, and even if someone with the most altruistic motives steps in, there's been so much damage to our economy that it would take so long to put us back to where we were just at before this last year. You know, it's not something that would switch right away. And, I think also, uh, I just lost my train of thought.
He said, I think also.
I think also, um, no, I mean, it's going to take a lot to, get back to where we were. Um, and unfortunately, and we have had, I think the Biden administration and the Obama administration and the Bush administration before that, whether it was them specifically or just the Republicans that were controlling things or whatever, um, we've always been able to get funding and money for military, and we, but we can't seem to like fix healthcare. We can't seem to fix, low income situations. So, our priorities have always been off. And, one of the things that kind of really struck me recently was, we're dealing with this Strait of Hormuz situation, which is causing gas prices to spike. And supposedly we were supposed to have oil reserves, so this wasn't supposed to affect us, and we're seeing obviously it is affecting us. Our prices are ridiculous. I think where we're at right now, the cheap gas stations, it's for just regular gas, the cheapest you can get is just under $6. Um, so that's pretty insane. And we're not like we're a more expensive area, but like if you go down to LA, their gas is already like $9. It's crazy. um but we're dealing with this, and I saw a video where Trump was talking about how other countries should just buy oil from us, and I'm like, from where? Like, where is this oil that you're trying to sell to other countries, but we are suffering? Like, shouldn't you be like, if there's oil reserves, it should be like, okay, we're going to use our oil reserves to make sure that we're not seeing a spike. He probably would have more people supporting the war that really shouldn't be supporting the war, but he might have a little bit more like backing if like that wasn't, this is what's really going to push what little percentage of people he had supporting him, because now they're suffering even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. And I saw this reel about how like I mean, our gas has gone up already in anticipation of, the Strait of Hormuz, whatever, being closed. But the reason they haven't shot up even more is like we still have supply coming in because oil tankers move snail's
Really
pace,
slow,
like
yeah.
so slow. So we are
It's like
still
months.
actually, yeah. So we're still getting oil from like before the strait was
Mhm.
closed. So we haven't even felt the biggest impact yet. And I know there's been some movement today with like escalations with Iran and all that stuff. But I know we have not had any successful ceasefire peace talks, even though, they've claimed that, but it didn't really come to fruition. But I know there's some shit going down with the strait as of today. And it just, all does not sound great. I still, I think they don't really have a great reason to have even begun this war. And that's a very confusing part of it. The only thing it has done is made everybody's life harder, both in the US and other countries as well. all to potentially, you know, because Israel has some blackmail on Trump. That's what the usual saying is, like, that's what people suspect is happening. It's all due to blackmail and Trump being controlled by some shitty stuff he has done, and people have evidence for it, and he doesn't want to like go to jail for it. But yeah, it's bullshit. And I've seen more and more of his MAGA base. I've spent some time on X. It's really hard to find someone who actually supports him at this point,
Yeah.
which is, both hopeful, gives me some hope, but also it's like, what are we gonna do about it?
Mhm.
We've always kind of had this security of like, we have the 25th Amendment. We have
Mhm.
ways to remove presidents from office if they ever get too crazy or
Yeah.
try to become a dictator. And at
And look
what
at Nixon.
point, right? Like, at what point can we actually use that? It feels almost impossible to get a president out of the office, um, by the 25th Amendment. Um, and it's crazy. Like, if we do not use it now, how bad does it have to be for it to be used? Like, my mind is, if this was Biden, he'd be out already,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, the big
Um,
problem is that, we've got Republicans that are controlling both the House and Senate, and then you have a couple that are brave enough, quote unquote brave, because I feel like this is, the fact that this is kind of the straw is ridiculous. We have a couple that are brave enough to cross lines and vote against. Um, but that's just the Senate, like I believe impeachment filings have just gone um, for Trump, but it's
yeah.
got to pass the House. It might pass the House, but it definitely won't pass the Senate. You know, who knows what's going to happen after midterms? Um, but I've seen a lot of people, and it made sense to me. I've seen a lot of people talking about, you know, uh, Trump using or basically stopping all elections from happening because we are in a war, that type of thing. And I can see that happening because it is looking like there's going to be a huge Democratic conversion uh, this year. Unfortunately, probably not for our governor, but
Oh,
at
I was just
least,
about to say, we
yeah,
forgot we should probably talk about that because that's
yeah,
concerning for sure.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, so if that's the case, if that did happen, if we did take control of the House and the Senate, impeachment would go through, um, at least on that side. But
But
you
then
have someone who,
impeachment is one thing, but being
yeah,
removed from office is another.
yeah, you have someone who's not following the rules anyway. So it's this is a dictator. So it's really hard. Like it sucks when you have a system that's supposed to have checks and balances. They're supposed to, prevent things like this from happening. And the abuse of power is just so wild and blatant and right in our faces. And as citizens, we're watching this happen and we can't do anything. Um, and yeah, and it sucks. Looking at fucking California governor, and California has that stupid law that it's the top two votes in the midterms. So there's not necessarily a Democrat and a Republican representative. And right now we're
Yeah.
looking at two Republicans that have the top because there's so many Democratic nominees that all the votes are being spread out too wide.
Right.
And the person who was at the top of the Democratic list, Mr. Eric Swalwell, he it just got released this last week that he has quite a bit of accusations of sexual assault. Um, so I mean, I didn't like the guy in the first place. He
Yeah.
just not only like did I just get the ick from him, but he's supposed to be remember if he's in the House or the Senate, but he's supposed to be working, and he's like taken off most of the time to like
Yeah. I think he's
run
in
his campaign.
Congress.
Congress, yeah. So and he's hasn't been doing his job because he's running and campaigning, and those are Democratic votes that we needed, you know. So yeah, I he wasn't my choice anyway. I still don't know who I'm voting for because I feel like everyone's kind
I
of
know that
fucking shit at this point.
there's one guy who's pretty good. Javier starts to be I can't Burr something. um, Mexican guy, but he's got the most experience. He's got like the best track record, and just his policies are more in line with what we would want. Uh, he was kind of the lowest in the polls underneath like Katie Porter and Eric, and he's kind of at the bottom. But now people are actively trying to get his name out there, especially trying to get Eric to drop out of the race, even though he's refusing to do so, which is fucking bullshit. And it's hard because we feel like we're in this point of we either elect a rapist, essentially, which would make us no better than MAGA at all, or
Yeah.
we allow a Republican to be in office. And so it's just like fucking hell. I don't want either. Uh, but if we can get this one guy, and Katie Porter's got, she's a bitch, man. I don't know if you've
Yeah, I don't
seen
like
some of
yeah,
her.
I don't like her either. Yeah.
The temperament is not good. So this Javier fella, I really need to find out his last name. Let's see. Let me Google that. So okay, so it's Becerra, Becerra, Javier. So he's actually, let me get his little like Wikipedia up here. So he's an American attorney and politician who served as the 25th United States Secretary of Health and Human Services from March 2021 to January 2025, a member of the Democratic Party. Previously served as the Attorney General of California from January 2017 until March 2021. So he's the guy that a lot of people are trying to be like, vote for this guy, and trying to get his name up there. So he's polling higher. So if we can only get Eric and Katie Porter to drop the fuck out, that would be helpful. Um, because he seems like the better bet for sure. But unfortunately, he's not the most popular. So I'm just like, do I need to start saving to move to Oregon?
I
Like,
know.
because I can't,
Yeah,
this whole time I'm like, at least I'm in California. At least I'm in California. And now I'm just like, fuck me. This would happen,
yeah. I know
So,
it's kind of like that's a conversation my wife and I were having was like, what do we do? And I think when it comes down to it, unless like something crazy shifts, and Trump is out and, things start going back the other way, like we feel like our only recourse is leaving the country. Like it feels too unsafe. Um so I don't know, like financially moving to have to do it again. And we've just moved like 3 times in the last 5 years. So we're like, that's, as logistically, it would be smarter for like our rights if we have a Republican governor. Um, but I don't know if we could do it financially. So it's like we have to play our cards right of like, are we going to attempt to move to Oregon or Washington and hope that none of those switch right away and, we can, you know, find work and all that and or do we just bunker down and like try and save and get out of the country? But
yeah,
it almost feels like both are just impossible at this point.
yeah, yeah. It's more of like, I don't know. It wouldn't be so bad if the Republicans running were more like socially liberal. So let's take Arnold Schwarzenegger for example. I think he was the last Republican governor of California. He was very liberal socially, so
Uh-huh.
you didn't really notice much.
Yeah.
I was pretty young at the time, anyway, so it's not like I was paying attention to politics. Um, but you know, I feel like that would be a place where not much damage should be done to at least like trans rights and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But if you have a hardcore MAGA, Republican governor, it's scary because you see what's happening in places like Kansas or Ohio or etc. Where people's driver's license are being revoked due to the
Mhm.
gender markers and stuff like that. Or what about our health care? What if our insurance stops covering hormones and stuff
Mhm.
like that, and it just puts us in a really bad spot? So that's something to also consider. If like, hey, if you are in California and you're voting on a governor and you have a family member who is trans and can be deeply impacted by this, like think about where you're putting that vote for a second, because it does have consequences. But it's tough to think about, and it's almost like Des and I have been like, well, if we get a Republican governor, then I guess we'll end up having to move to Oregon. We don't have the means and funds to move out of the country. So we're like, we'll move up to Oregon. If that goes to shit, we'll move to Washington. If that goes to shit, there's Canada. So hopefully by the time we creep the way up north, maybe we can cross that border, even if it's just to stay for 6 months or so, or as
Mhm.
long as
Yeah.
however long we're allowed to. Because at least if we move up like Oregon, you know, Dez doesn't have to switch jobs or anything. I'm still coaching. We're able to move around a bit and still continue on living. I have a granola business now that would complicate things a little bit. Um, haven't really full force gotten started with that yet, but it's still doable to do in a different location. But it's definitely something that's been on our minds, and it sucks that we have to even think that way. Yeah, we don't want to leave California. We don't want to move. Like we do
Yeah.
enjoy where we live. The weather is great. I mean, besides this week, but it's you got everything you need. The mountains are hour or so away. The beach, everything is like within a couple hours, and yeah, cost of living sucks a lot of times, but it you know it there are things about it that make it worth it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and also like, we've both grown up here and raised here, and we have our families, and friends and stuff. So that's always hard. I mean, we had to experience that when we moved to Florida a couple years ago, where it was, having that disconnect of like we had no family out there, didn't have any friends, and then trying to rebuild. It's different when I think when you're younger, and like you're going out to bars or whatever where you can make friends. Like we're older, we're not old, but we're older, and like we don't do that kind of stuff. So there wasn't really much of like a social life for us. But that was like the hardest part about moving. Like it was, being separated from our family and friends, and not having that community. So yeah, that would definitely be hard to have to do again. Especially if it was something where it's like a temporary, like, oh, we're probably like we're gonna move to Oregon to potentially move here, to potentially move here. It's like that's really hard to go through. And obviously, if it's like we stay and we die, you kind of have to make that risk. But it's hard to know like when that line's gonna be crossed.
Right. I think definitely midterms are going to be telling, right? That's what we kind of keep telling ourselves of like, well, we'll see how midterms go, but then there's always the what if they don't happen. That kind of follows that question. Hoping that they'll still happen. I mean, obviously Trump is worried about them. Obviously MAGA is worried about them. So that says at least, they're still in line to happen. And, special elections have not gone Republicans' way. And
Yeah.
all signs point to like they're about to get fucked, uh, which is kind of nice to think about. We just got to hope that they occur.
Yeah.
And if they do, I think that's going to help for sure. Is it going to solve everything? No, like it's going to be a long way out of everything that has occurred. And it wasn't great before all this happened. Let's be real. It
Mhm.
was a little bit more chill because Joe Biden's, you know, itinerary wasn't just destroy the Democrats or destroy
Mhm.
Republic. It wasn't vengeance.
Yeah.
That wasn't the reason he wanted to be elected. And Trump came in like with vengeance. He wanted to get revenge on the Democrats and everyone
Mhm.
who isn't loyal to him. And I feel like any president that comes in with that, whether Democrat or Republican, should not be elected because it just divides the people. It doesn't do anything for its actual citizens. And then there's just this war, underneath everything going on behind the scenes in the government. And it's just making people more poor, making people just fight each other, more miserable, can't agree on anything. And then everyone hates each other and the tensions are wild. So uh, I just hope we can get someone that throws that shit away. And, Democrats are starting to focus more on the affordability of things rather than just being like not Donald Trump. And I feel like that's how Joe Biden won because he wasn't Donald Trump, but he was also half dead and wasn't also great. So
Yeah.
we deserve better as Americans, I feel like.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's definitely hard. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen, and it's scary. But maybe we should jump into some lighter dark news.
Did we want to talk a little bit about the current Iran war escalation? We kind of talked about it a little bit already, but just to
Yeah. Let's see. Um, so there are talks in Pakistan that just failed. They're trying to open the Strait of Hormuz. Trump is now ordering a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Gas prices still climbing past $4, $5+. We're at $6. Uh, nationally, with diesel hitting $8 in places like San Francisco. So basically we've got failed peace talks, Trump's fresh threats to strike power plants, bridges, and blockade, shipping and economic fallout. Our inflation is at 3.3%, highest in nearly 2 years. And everything is going to shit. Uh, also there were some ceasefire talks, but Israel was still firing. So, Trump, you can't really make peace talks if you can't keep your guy Netanyahu in line. So,
right, right. I think, as we know, Netanyahu has some shit on Trump, so can't keep him in line because he's like, I'm gonna do what I want because I've got this blackmail, you know.
yeah,
Um, so we got to find someone to put in office who doesn't have a shit ton of blackmail on them from Israel or you know anyone else, Putin, any other any other. It's just not America first, which I find that's why MAGA's turning on Trump is like this is the opposite, of America first. They wanted to vote him in because he ran on no more wars. He ran on putting America first, and this is not how it has turned out. So they're pissed, rightfully so. Um, will we be able to continue to unite on this topic of like this is in America first and no one wants these wars? Or will we just go straight back to fighting as soon as the midterms come or there's a change in administration? I don't know. I'm a little nervous about that as well. Uh, inside civil wars, so fun. Anywho, we can go on to a little bit more. I wouldn't say it's like a lighter topic, but it's kind of funny, really. So, y'all hear about Kristi Noem's husband, being a cross-dressing controversy,
uh-huh.
and the fallout from that. So, Republicans just keep telling on themselves. They project everything that they say about the left or trans people or etc. The LGBT community. They're telling on themselves and they're projecting, and you always find they have those skeletons in the closet, and I can't help but find it fucking hilarious when that all comes to fruition.
Yep.
I'm just like, of course, of course. So just for anyone that didn't hear, so late March or early April, there was a Daily Mail bombshell with photos, messages, and audio alleging Brian Noem lived a secret, busty bimbo cross-dressing fetish life. So there's photos with like massive fake tits, chatting online with the dominatrix, like fetish models talking about leaving Kristi to become a woman, and even transitioning. Like he said, I want to be Crystal so bad. And Kristi called herself devastated and blindsided. Brian's cryptic response this week, not all true. So it was apparently an open secret in DC and raised blackmail national security flags during her DHS time. I've seen some of the photos. A lot of people have had really fun memes that they've made with them, especially since like the tits, like he couldn't even get the nipples pointing in the right
Yeah, they're all
direction.
like,
It's like if you're gonna come on, let us help you. The LGBT community can help you out. Make sure your nipples are at least pointing in the right direction, but you can't be an asshole. So I just found it very ironic, and it also explains a lot.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think, it sucks too, because I feel like this also puts a bad smear on the trans community, because that's going to be another talking point from the right and be like, well, this was a cheating man, you know, whatever, like I don't know, but it's not gonna be good. But it is karma. Kristi talked a lot of shit, and
She did a lot of
it's
shit.
she did a lot of shit. She was stepping out with one of her coworkers, so she probably knew this was going on. I don't know if obviously this was announced after she was fired,
Right.
but the government had to know about it beforehand. Um, at least I would think, if our government is as strong as they are to say they are. So I wonder if this played any factor in her being fired when she was because they were like, hey, this is about to go public and we don't want you to be, part of it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if she was more okay with it because she knew her name was about to be smeared everywhere. So at least if she's already, gone, less of a cancellation campaign, because it's like, well, she's not really relevant as much anymore. But she would have been if she was still actively, in the administration. But yeah, it's the hypocrisy. It
Yeah.
kills me. If we could all just, if they weren't so anti-trans, I mean, honestly, if you're on the left, like this is not something that would necessarily need to be it's not a problem. It's just the fact that they're liars and they try
Right.
to go after other people because they're insecure about themselves. So it's if you would just be more open about yourself and be more accepting of yourself, you wouldn't be so hateful towards those things about yourself that you hate. Like you see that in other people and you just decide to attack it because you're kind of paranoid other people are going to think that, you're involved with it. Like as someone who spent many years in the closet, went to Christian school, grew up, you know, Christian my whole life, that's what you do.
Mhm.
It's just like you learn that that's bad and that you don't want to associate with it. So in order to cover for your tracks, you make sure that you're like, oh no, you know, homosexuality is bad and all these things are bad until you realize like, oh, that's the part inside myself that I am ashamed of.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for religion, we wouldn't need to be ashamed of it. If we were not taught to be ashamed of it, we would not be. And I feel like the world would be a lot better place if we just did not have the shame surrounding all of these things that are not a big deal and that do not impact people,
Mhm.
outside of yourself. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much like the Handmaid's Tale, where the Jezebel's Club, where all the commanders are preaching one thing in this like holier than thou life, but they're the ones out there that are, doing drugs and drinking alcohol and sleeping with the Jezebels and
Yep.
doing all sorts of kinky things. Um, yeah. So our whole society is just hypocritical, for sure.
Right. And you know that there's always there's always a factual piece to fiction. Always. And
But
you
yeah,
know they get that from somewhere because it's true. They know that, there's people in the government that are corrupt that do not follow the rules that they like to force onto others. And in the case of Handmaid's Tale, that like suppressed sexuality, that's what happens when you suppress sexuality. It actually gets worse because then it becomes this potentially non-consensual situation because they have to hide it. I mean, that's why we have a whole ass pedophile ring. Not to say that those people were Christians by any means, you know, uh, but it's like obviously pedophilia or, yeah, child molester. It can never be consensual in that case. That shit is
yeah,
just should be shamed as much as possible. But it's like the other things where there's affairs or in case of like Jezebel, like yes, they're adults, it's still not consenting. Um, but if it wasn't so like you only have sex with your wife and it's very just vanilla and well, like there's no room for actual sexuality, that's what happens. People just kind of lose their fucking shit. So it's out of control. But yeah, I don't know. Just some observations from growing up religious because I mean there was times where there was like I there was a few times. I mean, the church we went to I grew up in found out the pastor was sleeping with a uh, an underage girl that he was counseling for anorexia.
mhm,
Motherfucker. First of all, do not go to your pastor to counsel you for anorexia, but that's how it works. You don't go to a counselor, you go to your pastor to counsel you,
yeah.
and they are not qualified for that shit to begin with. So did he face charges? No. He had to step down from being the pastor, but that was all. That's how the church handles this shit. Uh, and then there was a teacher that was at my school. And granted, I don't know if this is any better, but he got caught um, soliciting for sex in a bathroom in like a recreational park. So he like paid someone to suck his dick and he got caught. At least it was an adult, but still, he got fired and all that stuff. But if it's like, if this man was actually allowed to embrace his sexuality, would he have to pay someone to suck his dick in secret and get caught?
He
Probably
get his
not.
dick sucked all the time.
Right. He could have a nice little partner. They could live happy gay lives and just live life. And so that's when it comes to these strict, religious rules that can potentially just ruin people instead of allowing them to just live a normal life and
Yeah.
accept who they are at base level. Um, it's sad.
I also kind of have like a conspiracy theory that I don't know if anyone else has had this conspiracy theory, but I think, when we're looking at the war and the fact that we have so many politicians that are siding with Israel who are like, especially Democrats, like I could kind of see Republicans doing it, but especially Democrats that we're seeing that are voting to aid Israel. Um, I kind of think because of APAC, I think Israel pays all the new politicians. They send all the new politicians, whether they're Democratic or Republican or whatever, they bring them over to Israel and give them like a tour. That's a known thing. I think something happens while they're there that they end up getting blackmail
That's
on
probably
those
true.
politicians for the rest of their life, whether it's them cheating on spouses, them doing drugs, them
Yes.
sleeping with an underage person. They are finding ways to have something to hold over these politicians to where these politicians are willing to watch another country get, slaughtered just to save their own asses.
Yeah. And that was Jeffrey Epstein's job. He was a Mossad agent, and that was basically his job to get blackmail on powerful people so that Israel could control them. I mean, that's only part of it. But we're finding out more and more the role that he played. And so he had a lot of control or a lot of powerful people, a lot of people in government, both Democrat and Republican. And that was one thing with Eric, was it Swalwell? I don't know how to say
Yeah.
his name. I saw that he accepted donations from APAC. And a lot of people were like, fuck, I don't like that, but he's our only choice. So we got to do what we got to do. And now it's like, nope. Now he's being accused of sexual assault. This is very Trump. This is very Democratic Trump. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So it's scary. It's like you don't know who to trust anymore, either side. And so you just got to look like, who are their donors? That's a big one to look at, unfortunately. Oh, yeah. Speaking of people in government and influencers and shit, did you see how Trump went on a rampage and started attacking Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and Megyn Kelly, and everything he said about them?
I haven't seen that. I did see a clip of Tucker Carlson uh, basically talking shit about Trump for what he did on Easter.
Yeah. And I think that's why he was attacking, because they were all like, what the hell? And even Megyn Kelly was like, I'm so sick of this shit. Like, why can't he just act like a normal person? And it's just like, we've all been saying this for years. And I guess dropping, it was also him saying he was going to destroy a whole civilization. Like, that was a day after Easter. And that was it for most MAGA influencers. They're like, nope, you can't just say that. That is
Yeah.
very irresponsible.
Get saying the quiet part out loud.
Right. So that was a turning point for sure. The full tweet or Truth Social post that he said about Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones. He said, I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it's wonderful for Iran, the number one state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon because they have one thing in common: low IQs. They're stupid people. They know it. Their families know it, and everyone else knows it too. Look at their past. Look at their record. They don't have what it takes, and they never did. They've all been thrown off television, lost their shows, and aren't even invited on TV because nobody cares about them. They're nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity. Now they think they get some clicks because they have third-rate podcasts, but no, third-rate. Um, third-rate podcasts, but nobody's talking about them, and their views are the opposite of MAGA. Or I wouldn't have won the presidential election in a landslide. MAGA agrees with me and just gave CNN a 100% approval rating of Trump, not hand-flailing fools like Tucker Carlson, who couldn't even finish college. He was a broken man when he got fired from Fox, and he's never been the same. Perhaps he should see a good psychiatrist, or Megyn Kelly, who nastily asked me the now famous only Rosie O'Donnell question, or a crazy Candace Owens who accuses the highly respected First Lady of France of being a man when she is not, and will hopefully win lots of money in the ongoing lawsuit. Actually, to me, the First Lady of France is far more beautiful woman than Candace. In fact, it's not even close. Or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things and lost his entire fortune, as he should have, for his horrendous attack on the families of Sandy Hook shooting victims, ridiculously claiming it was a hoax. These so-called pundits are losers, and they will always be. Now fake news CNN, the failing New York Times, and all the other radical left news organizations are hailing them and giving them positive press for the first time in their lives. They're not MAGA, they're losers, just trying to latch on to MAGA. As president, I could get them on my side anytime I want to, but when they call, I don't return their calls because I'm too busy on world and country affairs. And after a few times, they go nasty, just like Marjorie Trader Brown. But I no longer care about that stuff. I only care about doing right for our country. MAGA is about winning and strength in not allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. MAGA is about making America great again, and these people have no idea how to do that. But I do, because the United States is now the hottest country anywhere in the world. President Donald J. Trump. Like, bro, wow. Like, I don't even know what to say. It's like he's got a mix of like definitely narcissistic personality disorder along with maybe BPD or some shit. Uh, it's just the lies in all of his attacks.
Yeah.
And it's like, do people believe this shit? I
Yeah,
don't.
unfortunately.
America is definitely not the hottest place in the world since he took
I
office.
mean, maybe from global warming.
That's the only way it's going to be the hottest place.
Yeah.
But as you can see, he has been going on these, rampages. I believe Candace retweeted it and said, "Time to put Grandpa in a home." It has been highly entertaining watching everyone turn on him. And it almost feels like those episodes of Handmaid's Tale where they're finally getting revenge. And you're just like, yes, that's what it feels like to watch his own people turn on him. Uh, but it's, I know, temporary until they find their new spokesperson who aligns with their views that were already previous in place. It's like they might not support Trump anymore, but they still have the same political viewpoints. They're still racist. They're still homophobic, transphobic, all those things. I mean, unless this softens their heart somehow and they begin to wake up in other ways. But I still, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of all this.
It, yeah, I don't often agree with Candace Owens, but I definitely think someone needs to put him in a home for sure.
It's weird how much you start agreeing with all these like previous MAGA or still MAGA, but like non Trump supporter MAGAs now. But darn well the only thing you agree on right now is that you don't agree with the war and you don't agree with Trump. It's like, cool. If we could, I guess, focus on at least we have that in common and move forward with that somehow, sweet. But the culture wars are always going to come back up and ruffle people's feathers. I just hope people somehow get smarter about it
Yeah.
somehow. But yeah. So
Well, speaking of Trump rants, we now have a Melania rant. Um, on April 9th, Melania had a surprise White House press event where she flatly denied knowing Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, said she wasn't a victim, and called for Congress to hold public sworn testimony from survivors. Uh, this caught even the West Wing off guard. Um, Speculation is the timing is tied to threats from Amanda Undaro, who is a Brazilian ex-model, ex of ex of Trump ally Paolo Zampoli, who introduced Melania to Trump. Undaro flew on Epstein's plane in 2002 as a teen, was friends with Melania, dined at Mar-a-Lago, and is now escalating the post, threatening to expose hidden links, corrupt system, and legal action. Fresh details this week include Undaro's deportation story and abuse claims against Zampoli, and survivors are pushing back hard. I don't know. I think, there's definitely connections between Trump and Epstein. I Melania can say whatever she wants about her not knowing him. She obviously, I mean, she knew of him at the very least.
she also was friendly with Maxwell. I don't know if you saw there was
Yeah.
emails between her and Ghislaine. It did not sound like they didn't know each other.
Yeah.
Melania does not speak friendly to fucking anybody, but that email was the friendliest I have ever seen. Like, oh, how you doing? Like, how was your trip to, it was like, yeah, okay. Don't believe her on
Yeah.
that for a second. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah. It's interesting denial with these accusations coming out. It'll be interesting to see if the shoe's about to fall and like some more stuff is about to come out that really incriminates her or incriminates her and Trump. But yeah, what do you think?
I mean, I'm following Amanda, whatever her face is. I just have to say they need to like protect her for sure because I do believe her. If what she said didn't have any weight, Melania wouldn't have done what she did. She would just ignore it. But you know that there's some truth behind it because she's scared, or Trump is scared. Someone is scared. I find it interesting how people took it as her going against Trump because she was pushing for, the victims to testify in front of Congress. I do not think she's going against Trump in this way because I think she's banking on it not happening. Saying one thing is one thing, but it happening is another. But also, she's just re-traumatizing the victims,
Yeah.
having them tell their story again. They've already done this, so it's kind of like I don't see that as being helpful uh, at all. And I know she's full of shit. And I believe that she was actually another Ghislaine. I think she also helped traffic girls to either Epstein or Trump, even, um, and was acting in the same way that Ghislaine Maxwell was acting. So that's why I think it's complete and utter bullshit. And I hope that this woman keeps talking because she's flat out said like I've got absolutely nothing to lose now. I'm gonna go like full scorched earth and expose all the things, and I really hope that she does. But at this point, I feel like how can anyone feel like Trump and Melania are not involved in some way, shape, or form by the way that they are acting?
Yeah.
Is that not enough to just be like, I don't believe you. And how the fuck are you still in office? Yeah, it's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely think hopefully, we're about to get some information coming out. We'll see. I mean, I feel like even then, like, we've had so much evidence coming out against Trump and nothing's happened. So it always feels like, oh, this something big is going to come out. This is going to be the thing that turns, and then nothing happens. So what's the point?
Right. And we've just become so numb to everything and just knowing like nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to happen. There's this hopelessness. And I know that's kind of where they want us, but it's so hard to pull yourself out of that and
Yeah.
just kind of keep having fight in you or hope in you because it's always a letdown. Uh, but I do feel the Trump era, as far as him being the leader of his cult, is coming to an end because people are waking up. There's still a long way to go with, the ideology surrounding how he even became who he is. But at least, his power is coming to an end. I don't think Vance has any chance in hell of getting elected, in 2028 because he's allowing all this shit to happen. He's involved in some way, shape, or form. So they're going to have to find someone new. That's what I'm hoping, at least. Not that I want that new person to also be elected. But I feel like people like James Tillerico are going to be hard to beat. I know he's, not even made it to the Senate yet. But I don't even think Obama was in the Senate for very long before he became president. So, maybe he'll be in the running 2028 or maybe after that. I don't know. Um, I know Harris is thinking about running again. I know Pete Buttigieg is thinking of running. And I'm just like, Harris, if you know what's best for the Democratic Party, you will not. But I don't think she'll make it through the primaries, but at least we'll have a chance to decide on that, this time
Yeah.
around. But a lot unknown, but I just hope as a country we can find a way to unite and move forward and just agree that the American citizens are getting fucked and we just want to live our lives and not work ourselves to death and still not be able to afford food and a roof over our head and not be able to actually enjoy our lives. The point of life is not just to work, pay your bills, and die. I want to take a vacation. I want to experience stuff. I want to be able to be present and not worried about bills and money and all that shit.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't seem like a lot to ask, but apparently it is.
Yeah. I'd like to be able to have, money to put in savings to, put for retirement. We're getting there in age, what, 20 years, 25 years until like retirement age. And, that goes by fast. So that's kind of scary too. The fact that like there's just nothing left over. Like it's always a scrap every single week. Um, so yeah, but let's not dwell too much on that depressing aspect of things. Let's focus on the highlights of our week, which, Cody, what have you been watching?
So we started watching The Testaments, which has been great. Missed Missed the Handmaid's Tale. Really love that show. It can be hard because there are some things that can be triggering in the way that this country is headed. Uh, the Testaments, if anyone doesn't know, I mean, according to the book, it's supposed to take place 15 years later, but for the show, it's only about a 4 year gap
Mhm.
that it fast forwards to. So it follows June's daughter and her growing up in Gilead, and how that it's all still unfolding. They released the first 3 episodes. We did watch all 3 episodes because we couldn't help ourselves. But it is very good so far. Uh, I've been really enjoying it. So recommend, if you watched Handmaid's Tale, it's yeah, you'll get your fill. It's a good continuation.
Do you
So
think it's
that's
something that
solid.
someone can watch if they haven't watched all of Handmaid's Tale, or do you?
I think you can, but I would say, I mean, it'll give some spoilers for sure. But I think you can watch it, and like having had watched at least like a good amount of Handmaid's Tale, you can still understand what's going on. All you got to know really is that it's June's daughter that they're following, and June is no longer in Gilead, and she's still working for Mayday and stuff like that. So if you know that, you could probably continue on and be okay. Um, because, but I would recommend watching at least. I mean, the last season there was some serious, like, a lot of emotional tugs, and there was a really, really powerful scene in one of the last episodes, at least like towards the end, that I would recommend making sure to watch just because it was so powerful.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can watch it regardless. But so that was the main thing that I was really excited to watch this week. Highly recommended. And then been watching America's Culinary Cup with Padma as the host. It's kind of like Top Chef, but a little different. But then also we've been watching the latest season of Top Chef. Um, and Kristen, who was a Top Chef contestant, is now the host of Top Chef. And at first, Des and I were kind of like, oh, I miss Padma. But now, like, I like Kristen. She does a really good job as a host, and she's very empathetic and just a lot more involved with the contestants on a different level because she competed. So she knows what it's
Mhm.
like. And she just seems like such a good human. And like this one girl didn't finish her dish. She was having like a panic attack. So Kristen just like went over there and like comforted her and like
Mhm.
gave her some advice and stuff. And it was just a really sweet moment. So yeah, cooking shows, if you don't want to, feel like a little down. Those are great ones to watch. Both of them are very good. So highly recommend. What have you been watching?
We just finished season 1 of ER, so we started.
Solid.
I think we're now 2 episodes, I think, into season 2, or maybe just one. I can't remember. We're into season 2. Um, we're loving that show. We're caught up on the pit. Not looking forward to the season finale this week because it's gonna be a while for season 3. Yeah. It's always hard when you catch up and then having to wait so long for the next season.
Yeah.
Um, so we've been watching that. We've been watching. We started. Did you ever watch? It was on Prime, but that show Jury Duty.
No.
So the premise is like it's kind of shot office style, so you think you're like in a documentary type of situation, but there's one person that there's like a whole everyone in the show are paid like are paid actors and they're playing a character, but there's one person that thinks this is real life. And so the paid actors are doing like all these like really crazy things, and it's like catching this person's reaction to the situation. So the first season it was like a jury duty, so it was like one guy in this pool of jury duty people, who isn't an actor and thinks he's really doing jury duty, and like all of these like crazy things happening. uh it, you should watch it because it's good for like a fun laugh, especially if you like The Office. It's filmed like The Office. um but the second season just came out, and that's around like a company retreat. So it's this guy who gets hired as a temp to come work for this company, and it's when they're putting on their like yearly company retreat. So he's in this, and everyone else are like paid comedic actors that are, doing all this crazy stuff. So we started that. That's pretty funny. Um, what else are we watching? I've been watching. There's a YouTube channel or group called Smosh, and I never got into it before because I thought it was just like, dumb young kids like doing prank. I thought it was like a Jake and Logan Paul type of situation, so I never paid any attention to it. But I want to say the last couple months, like I kept seeing like clips, like on reels and stuff, and I was like, okay, this stuff is kind of funny. And then I kind of got into it more, and like the cast are actually like really decent human beings. Like they're not, like assholes like the Paul brothers. Um,
Not
but
yet, at
they had
least.
no, they seem really good. Like there's like a lot of diversity on the cast. They're very LGBT, like pro. The men on the cast are very emotionally mature. Um, so it was just interesting, watching it. But basically they'll do skits, they'll do like SNL type stuff, they'll do like challenges where they try to make each other laugh, or they play games and stuff like that. But that's kind of been my like, putting on in the background while I do something else type of thing. um yeah, so
That's
that's been
good.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, a little lighthearted. That also reminds me, I forgot to mention uh Shrinking. I watched the season finale and super good, uh heartwarming finale. Highly recommend watching the show if you haven't gone into it yet, because it's hilarious, but good, heartwarming one. There is one other one I like totally am spacing about now, but there's something that premiered. Oh yeah, Love on the Spectrum. It is back.
Mm.
So that's a good little, heartwarming show.
I did see some spoiler news on that I'm pretty
I did
devastated
too.
about.
I
So
know. I know.
yeah,
But
that's gonna be hard when I get to that. But yeah,
I
that's on our to watch list for sure.
yeah, we've only watched like the first episode so far, I think. So the spoilers floating around have spoiled it for everybody. I don't even know if that happens on the show or if that was just
Yeah.
like after the fact. So it is kind of hard to watch when something doesn't work out. Uh, but sometimes the parts of the show are so cringy, and I'm like, this is how I feel. Like this is how I feel I am in the inside, and then you just feel cringy because you're like, oh, is this how people see me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
100%. Yeah.
but it's very cute and very innocent. Oh, it's a good one. Anywho, should we wrap things up?
Yeah. I think we've, talked people's ears off if they're listening long enough.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, we're actually not listening anymore. So, anywho.
30 seconds in, skip.
Yep. And they're like, yeah, who are these motherfuckers? Well, anywho, well, I hope everyone has a great weekend, whenever you're listening to this. And we'll be back next week for some more doom scrolling. But if you have any comment suggestions, show suggestions, tell us what you're watching in the comments. We would love to see what you're watching. Calvin, any last words?
Hydrate.
If you have control over anything, it is your hydration.
Hydrate. Yep.
It's a good one. Okay.
Stay hydrated, because I definitely don't.
Yeah, I struggle sometimes too. And nothing good happens when you get dehydrated. So drink your water or your Gatorade, whatever you got, and keep on keeping on. All right, guys. Peace out. We will talk to you next time.
Bye.